think that we will go ahead and start so that we have enough time. Could we open with prayer, please? Creator God, thank you for bringing us here this morning. Thank you for Nate and Julie, who will be telling us about their work and their commitment to these wonderful residents of Cohome. We ask that you would help us to live up to the commandment of love our neighbor as ourselves, and that we would do all we can to welcome and support and help these people who are in our community. We ask all of this in your name. Amen. I think most of you know that this is Nate Diskint and his wife, Julie. I think you go by your maiden name, don't you?
No, I go by Diskint, but it's slow to change the name.
Okay. All right, Nate and Julie Diskint. And Nate is the executive director and founder of Cohome, and his wife, Julie, I've witnessed, is extremely involved and supportive. So they are going to tell us, first of all, a little bit about what Cohome is, and then there will be time for you to ask questions. And so I'm not going to say any more. I met Nate probably 2 years ago now, about 2 years ago, having coffee. We had coffee at Smart World, and he told me his story, and I was just enthralled, and I have been really involved with Cohome ever since, and I think you will want to be too.
Thank you, Marnie.
I'll start by just saying a big thank you to Marnie for all your support and getting involved. And I think from day one, pretty much right after that, you came over, you met everyone. You've been a huge supporter since, and also thank you to the church and the outreach committee for all your help this last year. I guess I'll just start from the beginning with my relationship with my younger brother. So my younger brother Jeremy has Down syndrome. And growing up, we were very close. We shared a bedroom together. We also have an older brother, but he and I, my younger brother and I, were very nuclear. And that he had Down syndrome was not something I was aware of until we went to public school. We actually started in school at the Montessori here on Cutler Street. And while I was there, I didn't have any kind of concept that he had a disability because he wasn't treated any differently than I was. He went to the same school I did. We had the same routine. We shared a room. It wasn't that big of a deal. I was also, 5 years old, 3 years old, or something like that. And then a couple years later, I ended up in public school, and that's when I realized he had some disability because folks started treating him differently. Particularly, that's when the bullying starts. And as a family, I wasn't necessarily aware of all the work that went behind the scenes, even at that early age. But for Jeremy to be included in the schools that I went to was a full-time job for my parents, fighting for his right, his legal right to participate in the same schools his brothers went to. Fast forward, I think I took for granted all the work my parents had done for him to just live this very mainstream life. I graduate college, I'm working, I meet Julie, and Jeremy turns 21. In New Jersey, 21 is called the service cliff. Up until 21, adults with disabilities receive services through their school district. You start in the normal mainstream schools, and between 18 and 21, you can participate in the district's transition program, which Morristown has a wonderful one. We were not in Morristown. And so for those 3 years, adults with disabilities will work on their independent living skills.
Excuse me just a minute. Can everyone hear? No. Could you talk, just maybe come forward and talk a little bit louder?
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure everyone gets to hear everything.
Thanks, Marty.
Thank you, Nate.
So between 18 and 21, folks are working in their transition programs to develop independent living skills. And when you hit 21 as an adult with disabilities in New Jersey, district-based supports stop. You have to now register for state-based supports. and you have to go through a registration process with the Division of Developmental Disabilities, become Medicaid eligible and the rest of it. And folks typically stay home for now many years until they then get a placement in a state licensed home, or a group home. This would be a group home with a capital G, not just referring to a group of people who live together, but actually, that's a moniker referring to a specific type of facility operated by the state with DDD, the Division of Developmental Disabilities. So Jeremy's home, and most adults with disabilities at this time experience a pretty significant setback. All of the skills they were working to develop through their transition program, now many of them lose much of those skills. You're now living at home, you're not forced to have the routine of leaving home. For those whom college isn't relevant for and who don't have an immediate means of employment, and who are still going through the registration process for DDD, which can take years, there's nothing to do, except what your parents set you up to do. My mother had the foresight, and I guess my younger brother also, neither of them wanted to live together indefinitely. Jeremy saw myself, my older brother, and he said, I want to do what they do. I want to go to college, I want to work, I want to meet someone, I want to live independently. I don't want to just live with you, Mom. And so together they went and looked at a lot of residential programs. And I distinctly remember my mom calling me and telling me about one facility that they were at, and how if you live there, it's dual occupancy at best, meaning you share your bedroom with somebody else. The routine, the schedule, is the same for everyone who lives there. You wake up at this time you're off the program, at this time, they serve this, meal, at this time they serve that meal. And she was pretty shocked that was the offering, that the rest of Jeremy's life would not be self-directed if he were to join one of these programs. And what I mean by that is that Jeremy would now become part of a group, like an inextricable part of a group that couldn't be separated to be autonomous to do what he wanted to do. So if he found a job that worked these certain hours, well, that job would now have to fit the schedule assigned to him. And if he thought, one night I don't want to eat that, but I want to eat this.
And I want to eat it this time instead of this time.
Too bad. And that's not something that I guess he had expected for himself being mainstreamed in schools. So, right, the Americans with Disabilities Act created also the IDEA Act, and that's what allowed mainstreaming in schools. And the ADA mandates that we create spaces for adults with, let's clarify this. The ADA mandates that we make existing spaces accommodate individuals with disabilities. We don't create distinct spaces for adults with disabilities. Right, that would be kind of reverting to the separate but equal idea that we should be way past at this point. We're not. Julie and I just on Friday were at the Supportive Housing Association conference. Cohome was lucky enough to win an award this year, the Innovation Award from the Supporting Housing Association. But most of the other agencies participating in this conference, their models are all around creating distinct spaces for adults with disabilities as opposed to spaces that the rest of us use and enjoy. So my mother, being as ferocious as she is, she went and just rented an apartment for Jeremy and said, I'm not going to move him into this program. We'll just get an apartment and we'll run it ourselves. And actually found a friend from high school that I went to who was on the tennis team with me, and he had wanted to move to Morristown, and so they roomed together as housemates. But this guy went to work, and he had other friends, and he had like a system of support around him because he could self-advocate himself into those spaces.
And also, then your mom is still having to run that apartment for Jeremy. And the other question he always asks is like, what happens when parents aren't around anymore? It was like a big thing that he kept, questioning over and over again.
Yeah, that's a huge point. So it was basically a full-time job for my mom, right? And it was a wonderful experience for Jeremy, but also socially isolated. When his roommate would be off at work or doing other things, my mom, and there might be a gap in his schedule that my mom would create for Jeremy. It's a lot of work, right? So, and he went to a local day program. He actually went to CCM for a bit as he was trying to find employment. And then I don't remember exactly what triggered it, but I called my wife now, my now wife, and I said, Julie, this can't be so hard. You have to be able.
How hard could it be? That's what it said.
How hard it could be? It's just housing. Yeah, I worked with medical devices previously, and I thought those were pretty complicated. I drastically underestimated the human element. I thought, well, circuits and things, those are complicated. People, housing, that's simple. Anyway, so I think I'm 24, 25 at this time, and so we opened our first home in partnership with the national nonprofit on Hill Street in Morristown. And my younger brother moves in there. And this nonprofit group comes in to help manage the home, and we move some other residents in. And we realized that this group, this nonprofit, runs group homes. At that point, I didn't understand the distinction between, a group home and a shared home, or, what does a group home with a capital G mean? And you realize the constraints that they're working under because of where their funding comes from. And that they operate per this very archaic, manual that does not permit folks living in those settings to self-direct their lives. It does not give the space for someone to exercise their choices. And so, about 6 months in, I left that project and started the process to start Cohome. Started the initial fundraising and kind of putting the ideas out there of, can we create a home that is available to folks with disabilities, but not only for those with disabilities? And we also welcome in adults without disabilities. And what would make someone without a disability want to live with peers with a disability? How could we, quote unquote, mainstream housing in the same way we've mainstreamed school? So we founded Cohome, and we welcomed our first cohort of folks with disabilities into the home alongside peers who don't have disabilities. And so the Cohome model, for those of you who are not familiar, brings adults with and without disabilities together to share living. And those without disabilities who live in the home are not staff.
This is a key point that very many people get confused about.
Yeah, so underline, bold, italicized.
Because there's this assumption, right? Like a lot of these folks with disabilities, unfortunately, their only interaction with people without disabilities are usually family or people that are there to help them, their support staff. And so this was different in that we're saying, no, all of these folks are just living together as peers, not support staff.
Right. So when you're an adult with a disability and you struggle socially, but the only people you're around that you can practice your social skills with are either family or they're paid to be with you, that doesn't create opportunity to practice social skills. I'm sure all of us, if those were our only social interactions, would struggle socially. I know when I'm around my mom a little bit too much, I also struggle socially. No, she's wonderful. And so in Cohome, we have these folks sharing a very normal life, normal routine. So Tuesdays, we have our family style meal. Resident of the week gets to pick a meal, and that's whether it's one of our residents with a disability or one of our residents without a disability. We get to cook together. Marnie has come over and shared that with us. On Thursdays, also, the whole program is democratically run. What they want to eat, what they want to do. So on Thursdays, we do an in-home activity. They'll do a tailgate party. They've done tie-dye. They've done a glow stick rave in the house. So they vote on what they want to do. And then once a month, we do a much larger outing. again, they vote, they submit ideas. One of the guys, Jack, keeps wanting to go either to England, and now it's now Amsterdam. So
For our community outing.
for our community outing. So that is going on. Right.
And so the folks who live in the home of our peers without disabilities, they help kind of like facilitate these things along, but again, not in a way that they're directly supporting the individual, but creating that pro-social, like, this is how we run the house, everybody give ideas. And I mean, he had this idea and we were just hoping it would work, and seeing the results from it is really, really quite amazing. Every single parent that has moved their child in a short period of time has just been telling us how astounding the growth in their child is. Because they're now looking at others and saying, oh, this is a reciprocal relationship. You're not here to just take the trash out for me and do for me. You're here to just be with me and be normal with me, but we all have responsibilities. And just what comes with co-living is working through problems and working through things. So it's really been.
And Julie uses the term reciprocal relationships, and that's really what the program is about. So, I mean, there's a scene in my mind where they're deciding what movie they want to do for movie night, and what snack they're going to make. Are they going to make popcorn? Are they going to make brownies? Whatever. And my brother, he wants, what's that movie? Like the Halloween movie that Jeremy likes with like the Michael Jackson song.
Thriller?
Oh.
Thriller. Anyway,
No clue.
it was a very specific movie my brother wanted to watch around Halloween time, and he wanted to make brownies or whatever it was.
And he's used to getting his way.
And when he noticed that nobody else in the house wanted to watch that, I see him start becoming like dejected. Like, what's happening? This is my activity. I want to get one. And then they work through together. This time we're going to watch this movie, and another night of the week, he and one of the other housemates can watch that movie if they wanted to. So they learn to compromise like that. And kind of set yourself aside for a moment for the participating in the group. Let's see. Julie mentioned also how the remarkable growth our residents have achieved, and folks have encouraged us to try to come up with like a data perspective to track metrics so we could announce this to funders in some way. Anyway, we're too focused on the actual kind of day-to-day work to be able to come up with a system like that. But we have some ideas
Well, some
for
of it's
the
very,
future.
very hard to quantify.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But a common thing that actually just happened, we just opened this past week some apartments in Morristown on the 1st, so I can tell you about that in a moment. But I'm remembering when one of our guys, Jack, moved in 3 years ago. With his parents, we had spoken about his slow transition into the home, because this was going to be his first time living independently. And over a few months, he was going to start by coming and hanging out socially, staying for a couple of nights, going home. Their family lives in town. And it was within, I don't know, maybe it was the second week, he says, "Mom, this is my home." I think what actually happened was the family was going on vacation. It was the summer.
They invited him home for the weekend.
Okay.
Yeah,
They invited him home. There was some family occasion. He had siblings who were in college and they were coming home. And he said, "Mom, I have things at Cohome. I have to be at home. I'm busy."
I'm busy.
Right.
When has he ever gotten to say that? He's been taken along to everything the family does, which is, wonderful for him, but now he gets to choose, no, I have stuff going on, I'll come home when I can, because I'm busy. Like any of us have done, in our life.
That also takes a significant adjustment for parents who might not be expecting that, particularly so quickly. I just got a message today. An individual moved in on Thursday to our new apartments on Morris Street, and already he's done with his mother's home. So she had wanted to do a slow move of moving his things slowly over there and making this transition. He's done. He's going to stay there with or without the rest of his stuff. And he's very happy.
It's an amazing
So,
statement. They're coming at it with kids' gloves, like, ooh, we have to be careful, and look how much he's capable of. Just saying, no, I'm good. I'm okay.
right. So our parents also have to get together pretty frequently, you know, they kind of have their own support
With parent
group.
nights, yeah.
We started it where we would facilitate them coming together just so they have a space to talk about their shared experience, and now they get together on their own once a month. But I mean, that's pretty much the program in a nutshell. Is there something specific? Yeah.
I have a question. The people that live there that don't have disabilities, how do you determine who that is?
We have like an arduous selection process. Often, for most of the process, we let them decide if it's the right fit for them. So we invite them to come into a lot of activities with us. Right, so we have our background vetting. You know, everyone has to do their background check and the rest of it.
A lot of
And
interviews.
Then we have a few interviews. They come to a bunch of activities, and that's where they get to see, is this the right fit for me?
Because it's a commitment.
If they're going to be with us for a few years, and you're living with housemates who are, you know, quote unquote neurodiverse, you want to make sure that that's comfortable for you. And we found that people are pretty well capable of self-selecting whether or not this is right for them. First off, folks are not necessarily inspired to live in Cohome or participate in Cohome if they don't already, you know, if they haven't drank the Kool-Aid. Marnie's become our Kool-Aid salesperson now.
Inclusion Kool-Aid, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
And how many students or
No, please.
young people live there?
So in the Cohome on Miller, we have 10 individuals living together.
And they each have their own bedroom?
Everyone has their own bedroom. Yeah.
It's really, really nice.
The home is absolutely beautiful. When you bought it, it was how many years not having been lived
It
in?
was about 10 years since the owners had lived there. The previous owners did banking in Singapore or something and had rented it out intermittently over a decade. But I mean, the steps were rotted, the porch was basically peeling off the house.
This is the other part of, like, you know, the young, naive mind of, like, how hard could it be? You know, like looking at this house, like, it's perfect, and not seeing all the issues with
Well,
this
you know,
old house, which...
You do the home inspection, the guy says, well, you see the termite damage there, that can't be so bad. You see the rafter there, that's not so bad.
Ignorance is, you know, helpful in this one.
Right. How complicated can it be to, you know, support the house while replacing a beam? Very complicated.
So I'll be a
we learned a lot.
cheerleader for you because Marty invited me to go one night and I had a meal with everyone there. And I was so impressed by the people, you know,
You came to a shared meal?
yes.
So
And I loved it. And I would do it, I would like to do it again, but it's just a beautiful home and the young adults are endearing and you become very, they just endear you to them. And it's a great experience and you leave there and you just feel so good that you're seeing these young adults thrive on their own. And I love Hannah. I think Hannah she's a character.
She is a character.
Well, it's a very
I have to
wonderful
say,
thing.
one of our volunteers, well, most of you know Marilyn Harris, she helped with the breakfast bags one time. And Hannah does sort of take over with the breakfast bags and talks constantly. And afterwards, Marilyn said, I think if Hannah was my daughter, I would say after an hour, you can go to your room.
And Marnie just brought up the breakfast bags, and that was something that we really wanted to just mention. Like, a lot of things when we were starting Cohome, we had so many long-term goals and thoughts and things that we wanted to do, which were difficult to do all at once, obviously, when we're trying to just get through the day-to-day. But a big thing is, and huge part of being part of a community is helping other people and volunteering and giving back. And our folks had never had the opportunity to do that themselves. They were always like, you know, given to, but you really only feel part of something when you're giving, or you feel connected to something when you're giving. And we really wanted that to be a big part of Cohome, and we're just so grateful that you came in and just got it started, and our folks now are giving back to others, speaking about it and how it's important.
And you might talk about that, like Anthony, who does not live there but participates.
Oh, right.
The first time he came to do the breakfast bags, I mean, the whole time he was doing it, now, when do you do this? And I told him, well, I want to come back. I want to come back.
Yeah.
and he's come back every time.
It's amazing.
He
Yeah.
doesn't live at Cohome, but there's social club
Mm-hmm.
on
Yeah, so
Wednesday.
Wednesdays and Sundays, we have a social club. So we had a big interest from folks who lived in the community, who don't live with us, right? We have limited capacity, the home is only so big. And
Or folks who aren't quite ready to be independent, like move out, but they want to be involved.
right, help make that transition for themselves. And so we started the social club. We started just as one day of the week for like an hour or two, and then it became very popular, and so we opened up an extra hour, and then we opened up an extra day. And so now we meet on Wednesdays and Sundays for social club, where they go out in the community, they volunteer, we have folks come in. They actually make birdhouses that they sell at Just Jersey. So that's a little micro business that they started, that they do. They get all the proceeds, they decide how to spend it, if they want to blow it all on pizza in a night, or if they want to save it up for a bigger trip or something.
England.
England, yeah.
Right.
Tickets.
I was just gonna say, I actually brought my two kids, they're 2 and 4, to social club on a Wednesday, and we painted pine cones, and they got to like hang out with everybody, and it was amazing. So
Awesome.
it was so much fun.
I saw the pine cones.
Yeah, they
I got some pine cones in there.
There was a lot of Claire. There was a lot of the same color pine cones, but it's okay. Claire was like, no, I'm just taking them and painting them all. But yeah, no, it was great, and everybody was so wonderful with them, and it was great for my kids too. You know, to just meet new people, and yeah.
We love hearing that because, Nate and I at the very beginning, we were the folks who live in the house without disabilities, we call them fellows. They have it's like a fellowship project. But we were those people, and we were the landlord, we were like everything, but we got to be at all the activities, and it was just so fun, and we miss it. We can't do it anymore, there's too much to do, but we love hearing.
But it's still happening. So.
Yeah, we love hearing all the little details, it's so great. Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how the funding works, for the house and the sources and the needs.
Okay, so
Really, it was easy, wasn't it?
it was very
Yeah,
simple.
just like everything else.
So we have our sources and uses. We have many more uses than we have sources.
Sounds pretty normal.
Right. The funding stream is pretty complicated, but I'll give a synopsis. It's not as simple as, let's say, a group home, right, with the capital G. Your funding would come from DDD and the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency. Together they fund the DDD licensed group homes. We don't get any of that, which makes it really challenging. The reason we don't get any of that is only because we have adults without disabilities in the home. If it was all DDD clients, all folks enrolled in DDD services, we would be eligible. And it's just an ongoing dispute we have with HMFA, Housing Mortgage Finance Agency, basically interpretation of one clause on page 18 of their manual. I interpret it one way, which would mean that you could prorate the amount of money you get from them to the amount of people with disabilities you have in the home. They interpret it the other way to say that it needs to be all people with disabilities living in the home. I don't necessarily agree to disagree, but we disagree. So funding doesn't come from them. The residents are able to get a housing voucher from the Supportive Housing Connection, which is parallel to DDD, but really under Department of Human Services, DCA. So that pays for like the large chunk of base rent. Each resident would participate 30% of their own income, which for most of our folks is, for all the folks, is very, very low. To that, and then the voucher pays for the difference. For our programs like Social Club and the residential program,